I'm Phil Sanchez, Wish TV political anchor and the host of All Indiana Politics. Congressman Frank Mrvan tells me redrawing Indiana's congressional maps will only accelerate political extremism. Mrvan is one of two Democrats in Indiana's congressional delegation. His district is almost certain to be redrawn if lawmakers approve new maps. We talked about the upcoming redistricting session, the ongoing government shutdown, and what he wants the Trump and Braun administrations to do to help as SNAP benefits run out. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the conversation.
How concerned are you going into this special session?
I guess the concern that I have is for the working families of Northwest Indiana. The concern that I have is that this is about equal representation and what members of Congress and what I can do as far as a balanced or a checks and balance system for the state of Indiana. I believe in bipartisanship. I believe that middle ground is something that we should seek and not run away from. And if you have an all red state and an all blue state, then you're going to accelerate extremism. And so this is about two folds. These are very, very, very challenging times for Hoosiers. What I mean by that is it's not fair that working families are seeing skyrocketing utility costs. It's not fair that groceries are going increasing costs at the grocery store. It's not fair that homeowners insurance is going through the roof. These things aren't fair. But the fact of the matter is we're spending time, energy, and capital on a political issue. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because the administration's policies have failed Indiana Hoosiers. The big beautiful bill is going to cut Medicare and Medicaid. That means, and the big beautiful bill also increased our budget or our deficit to $4.75 trillion. And so ultimately, these failed policies have led to the administration to being able to read a poll. So they're playing politics and now they're picking voters.
To that point, what is your response to Republicans who say they need to do this in Indiana to counter gerrymandering going on in other states?
Sure. The first, I say this to everybody, is what can't you justify? Because if you look through and take you turn the page to the next part of that story, is there are multiple Republican one-sided states. Utah, there are multiple states that have one member of Congress or two members of Congress that are all red. And so when will it stop? It reminds me of the movie War Games. Someone shoots a nuclear weapon, then the other one, then it keeps continuing. What I'm telling you is there are sound-minded senators, state senators right now that are resisting this. They have faced two visits from a vice president and a phone call from a president, but yet they are still saying there's not an appetite for this in the state of Indiana. There are other issues, like I say, the cost of living, affordability, public safety, being able to provide for your family. These are the real issues that are going on. And so I want to make sure that you understand there's always political justification, it seems, in this day and age. My question is, what can't you justify? Bipartisanship is a good thing. And as a member of Congress, I've consistently done that. I've worked in a bipartisan way with this current governor. I worked with him as a United States Senator. I worked with Senator Banks with the U.S. Steel Nippon deal, making sure that it was only owned by a company from the United States. And I'm going to work with him in holding accountable Nippon Steel. And I worked with Senator Young on the Chips and Science Act, which created $8 billion in economic development near Purdue University with a chips and science producing facility. So bipartisanship is not a bad thing. And in Indiana, this is the last thing that I want to say. If you have a all red state, I am on the Appropriations Committee. I'm the only one from Indiana on the Appropriations Committee. I work very hard to make sure that Indiana and Northwest Indiana is represented, and I'm able to find funding for things that create jobs, wealth, and take care of working families. So if you take that away and you only have Republican members, then you're not going to be in the majority forever. You've got to think big picture.
Right, long term, right? Hey, real quick, and this is a two-part question. What are your thoughts on some of the protests that we've seen about this? What does it say about the electorate? And also,
Have you had a chance to talk with fellow state lawmakers about this, and what are they telling you?
So as a member of Congress, my father served in the Indiana State Senate for 40 years. He retired about 40 years ago. My family is very familiar with the body. Uh, the only message that I have to them, and I don't want to infringe myself. I'm doing my job. I want to make sure that government gets back open, that we do everything to protect working families that are going to be losing SNAP, to make sure people get health care coverage, to get our federal workforce back to work. Those are my priorities. Currently redistricting, you had mentioned the protests that are going on. I think that individuals with Hoosier values believe currently that this is unnecessary. 4 years ago, the state representatives and the state senators bragged about the fairness of their maps, how they went from community to community to community to get feedback, how they kept communities of interest together. That is vitally important. Now, as a member of Congress, I'm going to keep doing, and I'm going to be a candidate no matter what my lines are, and I'm going to keep fighting for working families to lower costs so they can provide for their families. And ultimately, my message to the state legislature is when my father was in the Senate and when I was a local elected official and now as a member of Congress, I never intentionally made the wrong decision.
Do you plan on running again in 2026, regardless of what happens?
Regardless of what's happening with the boundaries, I'm going to continue to fight for union labor. I'm going to continue to fight for the steelworkers, for teachers. I'm going to fight to make sure our police and fire departments have the funding that they need to make sure we're protected. And I'm going to make sure that families can provide for their families. And so ultimately, yes, I am a candidate and will continue to make sure that we are fighting and delivering resources from Washington, D.C.
While I have you here, and you brought it up earlier, Congressman, and I appreciate you taking some time for us, where do we stand on the government shutdown?
Government shutdown is always very fluid. I stand ready to come back. I'm in Washington, D.C. currently. The Speaker of the House refuses to bring us back in to make sure that we are able to be here ready to negotiate and to find a deal. The United States Senate is continuously trying to find pathways to end this. And again, why I believe that it is worth fighting for is because over 600,000 Hoosiers are going to lose their access to health care, or their increasing pricing is going to take them out of the market. And what I want people in Indiana to understand is that may only impact 10% of our population who are taking part in the Affordable Care Act. But what I want you to know is it's in combination with the big, beautiful bill that cuts Medicare and Medicaid funding and what it does to the ecosystem of our health care. If less people are insured, more people are going to go to the emergency rooms. There's going to be less access for all of us. And costs are going to skyrocket because providers are going to seek to make sure that they're reimbursed from other private insurance companies. So if you are a high deductible or a high premium individual, you are going to face increases also. So this is worth fighting for. Again, it goes towards affordability. And this is a battle worth fighting for. I want to make sure that we get back to work. I want to make sure that our government is open, and I'm ready, willing, and able to do that at any given moment.
One more question for you. Any solutions on SNAP or WIC at this point?
You know, first and foremost, the solution is I was a township trustee for 15 years. I have seen and sat across the table from individuals who need a little of assistance to get to the next level so they can become self-sufficient. Ultimately, where we are now with SNAP, that is a cruel choice the administration is making, a very cruel choice. And there are solutions, and I'm glad you brought that up. There are reserves that are in place to the tune to $5 billion that could be utilized. This administration chooses not to use that, making it a pinch point and adding cruelty to what we are doing to fellow Hoosiers, our neighbors, who may be stuck in this moment with affordability and need a little help to get to the next side or the next day. And so there is a solution. I'm calling upon not only this administration, but the governor to consider releasing emergency funds so that food banks across Indiana and in Northwest Indiana have the resources, because there are reserves available, to make sure our neighbors have food so that there is food on their table, and that children, seniors, and veterans and all of our neighbors don't go hungry when they are utilizing this temporary solution.
All right. Well, Congressman Mrvan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time and joining the show. Thank you.
I thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to address not only the citizens of Indiana, but also Northwest Indiana. And I thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
That was Congressman Frank Mrvan. He's a Democrat representing Northwestern Indiana. Remember, you can catch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30 only on Wish TV. I'm Phil Sanchez. Thank you for listening.